Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to this practicing session. Today, first look on the Beethoven Sonata Opus 49 number 2, which is a new piece for me in the Beethoven project. That's a project in which I'm going to record all the Beethoven works, not only for YouTube, but we're going to produce 22 CDs from October, November onwards. More on details in future videos. So I'm sharing my practicing process in some videos per week, either live or just pre-recorded and then premiered. As for now, these videos of these live streams or premieres go on Monday 5 p.m. or Thursday 8:30 p.m. That's Brussels time. So if you live somewhere else on this planet and want to join the community that's building around these practicing sessions, because that's really amazing to see how people communicate with each other during the live streams. And also it's a group of people that really got to know each other simply through what YouTube provides for us, making these things possible. So sharing everything with you on the go. So in this journey that heads towards, as I said, the recording of Beethoven's complete solo oeuvre in 60 works, 22 CDs. It's actually amazing that we are in the process of making that happen or realize that. So first look, as I said, Opus 49 number 2. We had some previous sessions with the Opus 49 number 1, a G minor, or just one session. Anyway, all the episodes are today. You can add a hashtag in the description box as a YouTube creator. So on top of the title of this video, you'll see 3 hashtags, and all the pieces that I am studying, practicing, or just sharing things about in these sessions, they are linked with each other through these hashtags. That's a complicated word, difficult word to pronounce. Anyway, so if you click on that, you should be able to find other videos if there were sessions that were dealing with that particular work of Beethoven. So without further ado, let's head over to the practicing session. We'll make some fingerings, starting from the Schenker edition, so not an Urtext edition. I'll make some videos about that on the Urtext editions, because the Wiener Urtext has really very bad fingerings. Let me keep it like that. Certainly not designed or made for an historical keyboard at all. So I'll have to make some videos about that, and hopefully someone at the Wiener Urtext or other Urtext editions sees that, because the edition is fine, but having to erase all those fingerings and replace them with my own, not saying that mine are better, but these are simply not an option. Schenker is better. It has less fingerings also, so there is less work to correct them. The best would, of course, be to have a score without any fingerings. You could say, well, just print from IMSLP the first edition, or even the manuscripts. That's not an option in Beethoven's case. But I don't like playing from copies. Really, I don't like. So that's what I will do, work from this Schenker edition. And I do check with sources that I have, of course, other editions that I have, even later ones like from Bülow. Those are actually great sources of information. Everything has a context. By the way, if you hear doors or computers, Anya is just working here upstairs. That's her office. So today, fingering, my setup, as always, is very simple. I try to be minimalistic in this, because if it requires me the same preparation for a production of a standalone recording or just a recorded video in which I'm talking, that would require too much time, and that will result in less sharing of these episodes, which you made clear to me that's not what you want. So today it's a new tryout with this microphone. That's a USB microphone. It's plugged into my computer. It's just simply recording there. I see I was over the 0 line, so maybe, we'll have to check on that later. So the volume of the microphone. This microphone is great for speaking. And certainly if I move a little bit closer with my mouth to the microphone, I'm just having a look on the computer there, still okay. This sound is great for voice recording. It's kind of terrible for recordings of instruments, but the idea is that I share this with you, with knowing that it's not the best setup. Okay, there we go. I'm going to zoom in with this camera so that you can see my score from closer and the keyboard. So you lose my face, but I don't think that's big of a deal. So there we go. Zooming in, that's a great tool if you make videos. And then I just move the camera a little bit down, maybe something like this. And then I'm going to move the microphone so you'll hear that like this. Check my hand. You're not fully in picture, so zoom out a little bit. Well, something like this. Okay, there we go. This is G minor. I was thinking, need the G major. So this is a piece actually I really haven't played a lot, if ever. It's only, oh my god, it's only for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 or 7 pages. So let's try it. This is of course something you can rather easily play à vue, so without preparation, but still that's not what I want. Maybe try out a little bit. I have to do like this if you want to see me. Look at the camera. So I want to make clear, I want to make sure that my fingering is correct. And correct, I mean in accordance to what I think the music needs and is what I believe or I think is kind of historical fingering. On a keyboard like this, you will come very soon to the conclusion that historical fingerings are really important because the clavichord says no to what became actually more standard in the 19th century. Czerny even goes further. And of course in Beethoven's lifetime a lot changed. Thinking of making a series on more or less historical fingerings. Always speak in 2 words if you talk about historical practices because it's all an interpretation. There is not one person living today that's fully aware of how it was. But there is certainly a lot to be gained just from looking into the sources. And certainly fingering, very few people are doing that. So one of the problems is if you have pre-written fingerings that you might adapt to them if it's okay, but that it's not really your own or really reflect of what you would do without having this. Tja. That's okay. Three here, that's difficult for a clavichord. Oh, it's too sharp. 5, let's see what we're going to do there. By the way, the Schenker edition is on IMSLP if you want to follow. Now we need to have 5. That's if you're opening your hand, that's possible, and of course sometimes necessary. I mean by opening is just you have the hand position like that and you open it. You know, that's if you play an octave, obviously that's what you want to do. But if you have a 5th here and certainly that high of a position where your hand is already twisted compared to the keyboard, don't do it. Just 5, 5, 5. And if you want to play this more or less legato, the release will help you. So then you have 5 and Schenker goes 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, that's of course possible. He certainly wants to avoid 3, 4, 2, 3 because, yeah, of course, he starts from the idea that you have to play this piece like crazy. I don't know how this is played, but I can imagine much faster, like. No, I'm just kidding. I even don't know if I'm kidding because I don't listen to those recordings because it doesn't make sense. And then you come to the conclusion that this piece, well, just a sonatina, a small sonata. Why bother playing it? No, but if you play it much faster, then of course you need to go to 3, 2, 1, 2 because 3, 4 is awkward. Will not help you. So fingerings, historical fingerings are important to see if you look to. I don't see personally a reason to do this. Czerny is great actually. We, just mentioned that he. My pencil. This is really bad sharpener. He changed, of course. All those people had an evolution, even Beethoven. So if you look to his fingerings of the Simrock edition, that's the latest one he made, it's wonderful. And sometimes for me, it's striking to see, my cable is here on my keyboard, so like that, to see how different he does things that I would do. But still there is an old practice in having very few finger substitutions like this, finger legato, but also in regard to tempo and interpretation. Take those fingerings seriously in connection with the pedal use, and you will learn a lot. Beautiful. Yeah, that's too complicated. I think here was just a practice of playing all 5 fingers. It's sometimes difficult, you go back in time and use of 5 fingers as equal to each other is of course something that in the 18th century was not very often done. You had the strong fingers, 2 and 3, this is obviously weak fingers, and yet the thumb had a different position since Bach, and actually also before, but C.P. Bach mentions that his father was the first to introduce the thumb into regular fingering, but that's obviously done before that in the North German style, even South Germany, Pachelbel and other musicians. But Bach, of course, made use of that in an incredible way. But yeah, also Beethoven, there was an evolution forward, and we're looking back, and so reconstructing things backwardly is really dangerous to do. Shouldn't do that. But cannot escape from doing that because we live in our time. So if I say playing all 5 fingers, yeah, that's something perhaps that Bach might not have done, maybe Mozart even not, but Beethoven, yeah, why not? But I'm just thinking here another thing. Yeah, okay, this is something that could be better. So Schenker writes here, that's fine, but then he goes 2, 3, 1 on the C, which is a weak note. I mean, it's the second 8th note of that quarter note. Let me check the camera, it's okay. If we have a 1, the first finger here, then we emphasize an accent. We emphasize also the fact that there is a bow. So first note on the bow needs an accent, but before that, small articulation gap. He's very sensitive in that, Beethoven, as all composers, because this is really indicating his performance in a way. So here as well, don't know if you can see that, you have small articulation. But here, for instance, he doesn't. Would be an 18th century practice. No? You see, there is a lot to tell about a piece like this. And then all the way 1, 2, 3, 4, it's made for that. Yeah, And then here adds 3, 4. Why? That's not necessary. So I have stolen Sophie's eraser. What's that? Tipex? We call that in Dutch. Tipex. Back in the days we had those fluids, but it took for ages to dry, and then to use it longer you could refill with another substance, but turned out to be really, really poison. I mean, it's forbidden, I think. Yeah, and then this practice, as you see in the Wiener Urtext all the time, repeated note, 2 fingers. Jenny writes about that. If it's fast, then you have to do it. But if it's not, why? Leave the hand in position, because you can start to play this figure. We need your wrist here. Okay. And remember, there's only one moment where you play a piece for the first time, so those are golden moments. I will shift to 5 here. Anya tries to be as quiet as he can. You should make some noise. It makes this practicing session more lively, more real, you know? It's just a snippet out of our day here. This is of course a difficult fingering, but we'll keep that because it gives attention to the note. Don't have even to think about the accent. From the nature of the fingering it follows. Okay. Also here. No, just one. If it's really fast, yeah, okay, but not repeated note. You can give more quality to the sound. Why? Okay. I was asking why going to 3 while the 4th finger is of course ready. That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. Schenker's fingerings are not the worst. That's so nice. And Beethoven, he emphasizes the importance with the bow accent and the 2, well, staccato is a strich. We talked about that. Strich is not the same as a staccato note, so, but even in Czerny, you will find a similar definition. He only once mentions that, yeah, if you have a strich, so a line instead of a dot, can mean also a slight accent. So, but I think it's difficult to, it's a kind of performance sign that is difficult to really define clearly and well. But what it does mean, I think, in Beethoven's work is to give it attention, those notes. So instead of... Hear the difference? Also, not too much, but enough. Also here, overcomplication. Not necessary. So let's erase that. And I understand, I mean, I'm not criticizing the people of the Wiener Urtext more than necessary. I mean, it's always easy to stand at the side and say, well, hey, this and that. I mean, I know how that works. I see it every day on my channel, the internet experts. But it's a way of overthinking things. And I think an Urtext edition should give, actually, the purest form of an Urtext edition would just be the notes that are at the end. That's actually everything we need. Provide a text which you can work from, yeah, why not? But don't make fingerings. Or make clear, or make, oh yeah. You could say, well, fingerings I make, people ask me for those because they give a certain perspective, but yeah, that's of course a dilemma. Make an annotated score then. So here you have 3-2, and then he goes 3-4-3. No, 3-2, of course, repeat that. Why? Why changing this? If you repeat that with the same fingers, if you can, if you don't have black keys, you have T-dum. You have always the same way of playing it. So, but if you then decide to make annotated scores in case of an Urtext, I mean the Urtext part of an edition would be the appendix, the notes, which are really, I mean, if you have the Wiener Urtext at the end, you have few pages, but that's years of work. It's amazing. I'm not criticizing that work at all, but if you make fingers, it takes at least the same level of dedication. Just keep it here. Check my camera because it's not on my computer, so I have to keep an eye on the time. It will shut down after 29 minutes, which is, I think, an EU regulation, which doesn't make sense. No 3 here. I know what he wants to do. He's afraid of losing the legato. It's fine. And then, of course, no repeats. We don't do that. I mean, we don't change fingering. Here also. C sharp directly to the 5. And then these editors, they keep repeating everything, which sometimes makes sense. I mean, yeah, you want to have that, but not in the case if you don't want to use that. Okay, that's fine. Here is 2, you can say, well, it's not a big of a deal, but here you will lose some of the legato. So on exactly that place where you go from the G to the F sharp. So you have to lift your finger more to land on the F sharp. That is difficult to do with the same finger. So I have to repeat the 3 there. Now I go to 4 here. See what happens next. And then I go to 5 here. 5, there we are. Okay. Don't want this. Start a petition for clean Urtext editions. Here, why changing fingering here? That doesn't make sense. And here it's definitely not with a 5. It's not, doesn't work on the clavichord. I'm going to just turn off my camera and you'll see me back in 2 seconds. So we don't do that. And I hear. If you have 5, you have to move inwards. Doesn't work on the clavichord, and even on the Steinway gives a worse sound. Here. No. Here again. Let's be. Sophie was so proud when I told her I used her, whatever you call this, in the video. But when I needed this one, I went to her room. Don't tell her. No, we don't have secrets, but I didn't find, because it has 20 of these things that were in one package, but they were carefully hidden from me, I think. So I guess I have to ask her. So the tempo, this is not too difficult of a piece, obviously, but it could be Mozart. It's amazing, actually. These are also earlier works. They are Opus 49. They're published later, but I should take my list there. I think it's 1795-ish. I have my metronome here, and so Moschles gives us 3 times quarter note 160, and Czerny gives 104 for the half note. So Czerny is the fastest. I have something on my finger here of that. Erase my fingers, that would be not a good idea just before the Beethoven project. So let's try Moschles. He is the slowest. So that is in single beat, it's 80 for the quarter note, and Czerny goes to 104. That's of the bigger differences that you will see. There is also the Appassionata has different numbers from both of them. So they changed, yeah. It's slower than I played. Now I see, if you start in this tempo, oh here, stay with me metronome. You have a kind of feeling, well, you could use a little bit. It's also a C with a stroke, so that means he says allegro ma non troppo, but it contradicts a little bit the time signature. It's not alla breve. We made a video on that. You can find it on the channel. It's a very important distinction. It's a faster 4/4 bar signature, time signature, but it contradicts the ma non troppo. So, but if you start and it sounds more majestic. You have time for these trills, but then you come here. So you see how fun it is just to play with this with these metronome numbers, because now there's a totally different world. And you could say, well, I could have said at the beginning, well, that's too slow. No, it's not possible. Yeah, and you proceed and you take this into account and you try to make sense of it, and suddenly, or after a longer period, it depends how experienced you are. Well, yeah, it's literally that. You need to do this for months and for years. It's not something you can do overnight. Just take a metronome, apply that double beat tempo to those things, because that's a different language then. But after a while, it makes sense, and mostly stick to this tempo. If we try Czerny now, he will perhaps emphasize other things. I think this is very close to the practicing tempo I had. Yeah, so which one to choose now? We have two options here. So does that mean that the metronome numbers are relative to the player? Yes and no. Yes, because all people are humans, and so we have our own projection, and so it's a pity that we don't have Beethoven's numbers here, but there is, of course, a range in which those people worked, and this is kind of bigger differences that you'll find. Both of them are remarkably similar. And if you even go further to Von Bülow, which is a very important voice in this, his metronome numbers are different, so he didn't copy them, but they match those as well. And here the difference is it's understandable, because Moscheles is emphasizing the lyrical aspect. It's also emphasizing, I think, the ma non troppo, which is right. I mean, if you have 80 for the quarter note, that's also a Bach allegro. And here as well, you could say, well, this is an open structure. We don't see any 16th notes. So compared to a piece, an allegro piece with 16th notes as a basic fastest note value, yeah, then you could say this is maybe a little bit slow, because the absence of the 16th notes make the piece a little bit quicker. But that could be what Beethoven meant by adding ma non troppo. On the other hand, he has given this as a time signature. There is a footnote here. The original edition, Bureau d'Art et d'Industrie, lacks dynamic marks completely. Okay, yeah, that's wonderful. If an edition doesn't have any dynamic indications, you can make up for them. You can think about them yourself. But anyway, so Czerny might have just taken this more into account. There is a certain conflict here. Yeah. Does that prove anything? No, I don't think so. It's just something that has two options. And it's an interesting one. So my original thoughts would go to Czerny's, but I think that makes the piece also a little bit more to the surface, more superficial. So if we stick to Moscheles, and it's not that I choose for the slowest bit to prove something, you know. I'm not, if I play music, I'm more serious than that. Some people write, I like slow playing. Yeah, it's sometimes not so slow. That's the internet expertise. That's a 5-minute typing expert who just sometimes unbelievable. I mean, I'm not going to dive into that. How little some people want to understand and what speed actually is. But the 160 gives an option. And yes, Moscheles was very classic in his tempo. He is not, well, of course, they all lived in a time where piano music and music in general evolved in a very rapid way. Although, yeah, if you see the evolution from Bach, J.S.Bach, to his sons even, and to Mozart, it's just one generation. It's Haydn, it's so different. So, but I mean, in terms of technical development, some moshless etudes are really difficult. And even in double beat, I mean, they are really hard. So they all lived in this era of evolution. But Moscheles, in his editions for classical works, was someone, he's an 18th century guy in that regard. You can take him very seriously. So, let's see. It's definitely monotropo. Really Mozart, huh? It's a nice tempo. I'm really glad I checked it because I didn't know that. I somewhere in time wrote this down. It is a nice tempo. Yeah, that's fine. Glad to have that tried out here with you. I'll zoom out our camera a little bit to. Sorry, that was the wrong direction. Okay, so Moscheles, I have his original edition here on the shelf, was a gift by one of his originally Hallberger Prachtausgabe, glaube ich. I think it was a gift from Lorenz. But I don't use that to play because his fingerings, that's the opposite of Czerny then. Czerny's fingerings are made for the pianoforte as I've here. So the Viennese pianoforte, Moscheles fingerings in a way I feel are tailor-made for the Erard piano, for the later piano. He played Erard in London and then he returned to Leipzig. In fact, when Mendelssohn asked him to become professor in Leipzig, professor of piano. So Mendelssohn was the founder of the Leipzig Conservatory. It was something new also in that time, to bundle schools into higher education. Was of course the bourgeoisie. That all things changed in that. Not going into detail, but Moscheles was moving away from the Viennese piano more faster than other musicians, and I think his fingerings are made for the Erard more than for the Viennese piano. Also, he added some more pedal indications, which is interesting to see. And if people say, well, but that's not historic, and that's of course a romantic addition. Oh, yeah, perhaps, yeah. In this case, you could say yes, it's an addition, but it's a clear indication of how Moscheles played those pieces. So how cool is that? He knew Beethoven very well. I mean, imagine this. I always think like that when those people reading Schindler now and all the comments that people make on that. Also, it's a beautiful article on the decriminalization of Schindler. Talked about that in the last episode, last live stream, directly with you in the chat. But it's interesting to see. You have to place all these people in a context, and then I sometimes think if those people would give a lecture tomorrow, all the criticizers who say, well, Schindler is a fraud, is a liar, and Moscheles, of course, that's romantic additions from Bülow, don't pay attention because that's a romantic. If they would give a lecture, I wonder how many of those people who don't pay attention to those sources would attend that meeting or that lecture. I think a lot. And probably the ones who take him seriously would be on the last row, if ever admitted in the limited space that would be available. But that's just a side remark, but that puts the things into a context that's sometimes funny to think about. So Moscheles edition, yes, look at it. Those metronome numbers, he's more stable also than Czerny, stable in a way. Czerny, every time he made an edition, made new metronome numbers, which is really interesting because they are very close to each other, but they give a slight difference. You can see there he moved away from his original number, then he came back. His numbers in the pianoforte school, which are mostly referred to, I think, are of the slowest, but there is not so much difference. It's 5 to 10%, and that's of course what it is. As I said last live stream, when I play Beethoven, the spotlights are a little bit more on my tempo than should be. And I understand, because if I would play a slow movement a little bit faster than Czerny indicates, can you imagine what the reaction would be? And it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube, because really a lot of people are internet experts. It's the only thing I can say. There's a lot of expertise as well, and I don't mind. I don't have all the truth in my mind. I have just a little bit, but an internet expert, is someone that I call. When I call someone an internet expert, I don't mean that is someone with not all the knowledge, because neither of us has all the knowledge. But it's someone who thinks she has all the knowledge, and then just from not even a reflection gives feedback, or not even feedback, and then certainly it becomes ridiculous when people are calling me out for not listening to them, for all the counter arguments they gave and all the recordings that I have given in single beat, and there are none, or there's just one with a lot of pedaling and with a lot of noise actually produced, which is not saying anything. Not digressing here on that, but just saying that things that we're doing here, and that the reason that you come to the channel and follow these practicing sessions also is because you have to understand it's a complex matter, and at the end you make your own decisions. But there is a lot of input that can be given, much more than we are actually getting today from our musicologists. And I'm not quote unquote because I don't respect them, but it's sometimes so biased from a certain perspective, whereas we have to open this. So many facts that could be just inserted in this fascinating field of performance research, because that it is. And tempo is the foundation of everything. I've said it often, and I will repeat it a lot of times in the future. Fingerings, important. Okay, guys, hope you like this premiere of this practicing session. There is a lot coming up for the future weeks and months. I will be, when this is premiered tonight, because it's Thursday now, it's midday, I will be recording at the Frenzel some Beethoven sonatas, I think. There will be Czerny on the channel soon, and a new series, Etude series, but it's all in progress, so you might see some updates in the coming months. But I will inform you, and I will use the community tab a little bit more. I can send you a picture like on Facebook. I will not spam you by no means, but just if there is a short or small update, I will do it through that way. And the email list, of course, is something that is steady, and I should look into that more as well. But one step at a time. Okay, thanks for being here. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love to have you subscribe to the channel. And I thank my patrons for supporting all of this. There are the backbones. Their support is unbelievable. We are now 86 or 87. So if you have just one spare minute of time and go to our Patreon page, which I have to update, by the way, just throwing in $1 a month is possible there. And you're part of the community then, which enables us also to interact more directly, certainly through mail and also in the monthly hangouts that we have with the patrons, which are really intense conversations sometimes that I really enjoy and look forward to all the time. Having said this, thanks for watching. See you soon again.